Well, is now a good time to buy a car? Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. Good afternoon. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. And I do have a line open if you'd like to call in and join the program. The number to call is 1-877-913-5357. 1-877-913-5357. You can also go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com. Send that question into the Ask Bob section, and I will get you taken care of. That's off the website, www.prudentmoney.com. 1-877-913-5357. Well, over the past year, there's been some pretty crazy things happening in our economy. Of course, inflation has dominated the headlines and continues to do so, but the effect on various markets is like it's a collection of stories of how inflation is affecting everything from one market to another market, not just a small percentage of the economy, but the entire economy. And it has definitely affected the new car and the pre-owned car markets. So if you're wanting to buy a car, you got to be a lot more educated on what's going on so that you don't overpay. But then again, what is the true price of a pre-owned or new car? That's the question. And the way it started was with the availability of brand new cars, the brand new car market. There's a chip shortage, which cars can't run without chips. There was all kinds of COVID type situations. In fact, I was talking to a friend of mine this morning, and I actually was telling me something that I had a video clip of, and I'd already run it on prudentmoney.com. But there's a huge piece of land, acres of land, out near Midlothian. In fact, I wish I knew how big that was, because you wouldn't believe this unless you saw it. But I had a client drive by and videotaped it from kind of as he was going. And what you could see from miles upon miles, as far as you could see, is brand new car after brand new car after brand new car, almost stacked up on top of each other. And the first thing that you marvel at is that's just a lot of new cars. And the second thing you wonder is, how are they going to ever get those cars out one by one, I guess, to get them ready to be sold. So the car production is there, they're just not sellable. Pretty wild scenario. But at some point, it's going to make sense to buy a car. And there's really, obviously, the two things you look for in any inflationary environment is supply and demand. Well, we know that supply, when I left out a big part of the equation, we'll cover with supply, of course. The supply is the limited or overabundant number of vehicles. Of course, in this particular situation is limited. What has happened with the limited amount of new cars for sale, then all the emphasis has switched to pre-owned cars instead, I guess, for people who needed to buy a car or wanted to buy a car for any particular reason. And I believe the last number that I saw was 28 to 30% increase in price as an average. Actually, I think that's a little high. I think it's more like 22, 25%. But anyway, the bottom line is there's very big increases on pre-owned cars. And I've told this story before. I'll tell it again. I took my son, my youngest son, out to look at cars. He was 16 at the time. And we pulled onto this lot, and we saw this one car that had some hail damage on it. It was brand. It was a almost brand new car, but it did have the hail damage on it, and it was only on the top of the car. So my son didn't really care one way or the other. And I thought, maybe we'll get a decent deal. So the first thing that I asked the guy, well, how much can you come off that car? And he goes, come off that car? Are you kidding me? Don't you know there's a supply and demand problem? And I thought to myself, I looked around the lot and I said, it doesn't look like you have a supply and demand problem today with a full lot. That's changed a little bit today where lots are not so full. So it really does come down to limited supply and great demand. So, and when it comes down to buying a car, it's either something that you need to do or you want to do. I would suggest if you want to do, you might want to wait a little bit longer. But unfortunately, with that advice, longer could be well into the future because of the fact that when you, and this is just my theory, I don't have anything to back it up besides watching human nature play out for so many years. The price increase has gotten so large on pre-owned cars that it's not like you're going to wake up one day and see pre-owned cars all the way down 25%. I think that they'll come down on price, and then what probably will end up happening is you'll see an equilibrium somewhere, maybe 5 to 10 to 12% higher than it did pre-COVID. That's just a hunch that I have. So you're still going to probably overpay for a car, but there's some things that you have to factor in. As demand goes down and supply starts to build a little bit, then you'll start maybe to see some negotiation, maybe see some car dealers that are, even though the supply and demand is what it is, if a car dealership's not selling any inventory at all, they're going to have to perhaps come off the price a little bit. But one thing that is dampening demand is financing, for sure. At the beginning of the year, you could get rates at 3-something%. Today, that's almost doubled. Financing for a brand new car, it goes from 5.24% for 3 years to 5.54% for 5 years. For a pre-owned car, it's 6.04% for 3 years to 6.44% for 5 years. That makes an enormous difference in the cost of buying a car, especially when we are a culture who figures out whether they can afford a car as to if they can afford the monthly premium. So interest has nowhere to go but up, even though it's been down a little bit here in the last month and a half. Car financing rates, which has been kind of amazing to me to look at where interest rates are in the market and where they are in the financing for new cars and used cars. And it makes me wonder if you have a market that is kind of price fixing a little bit on the interest rates, therefore making more to offset the profit and the loss of profit. I don't know, that's a hunch too. So you have the higher cost of interest, which adds to the payment, which is going to suppress demand a bit. Then, of course, you got the economy. And you've got people now going, do I really want to pay that much for a car? So the deflationary effect starts to work on the pre-owned car market, as people who would buy cars, customers who would buy cars, were waiting for car prices to fall. Now, I think this will start slowly building into the system. But remember, once again, I don't think you're ever going to hear a car dealer say, you know what, we've been charging too much for these cars. We're going to come down another 10, 15, 20% on this car so we can sell it to you. So I think that I really do think that the cost on pre-owned cars is going to be high for some time now. There's a couple of other dynamics you want to focus on when you're looking at a car. The first one is to get an idea of what the real value of the car is. And this is an exercise anybody can go through, very, very simple. And it's by looking at all of the cars that are for sale, or most of the cars that are for sale across the country. And you can do that on a site like iSeeCars.com or Autotrader.com, and you can do a search. And you can do a search based on mileage or based on everybody who's listed their car. Now, I do believe, especially if you combine the results of both of these services, it's all free, of course, that you'll get a good idea what the average cost is of a car. More on that in a little bit. This is Bob Brooks, 1-877-913-5357. Up against the break. Stick around. I'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Do have a line open, 1-877-913-5357. That is the number to call. I was talking about trying to find what the true value of a pre-owned car is, because the value is what people are willing to pay. So if you go to autotrader.com or iccars.com and say you're looking for something like a Honda Accord, and so on both sites you can pull up all the Honda Accords literally across the nation, or you can look just within 100 miles of where you live and to get an idea about your community and what cars you're running. Make sure you're looking at warranty and you're looking at similar cars as far as mileage. And what you'll get is the highest cost, lowest cost, and the average cost. And the thing about it, once again, assuming on this, if a car dealer has had a car for 2 or 3 months, that price is going to go down. So you're looking at, why are the lower end cars priced less? And there could be a number of reasons for that. And any car that's priced less is probably not going to last very long. But you'll get an average of what the car is worth, and you can take that into a dealership and know that, hey, I'm getting a below average, I'm getting an average, I'm getting above an average, but this car's got this feature and this, however you want to go through it. But that is a great way to get a value of a car. Second thing that you always want to do if you're going to go out to, in fact, you don't really even need to go out to buy a car. You can do most of this over the phone, by the way. I think the cars, and especially the internet. And if you can't go, if you're looking at a car that's halfway across the country and you want to ship it, you can always have somebody check it out up where it's located. There's a lot of things that you can do now that really the car buying and selling has changed so much over the past decade. But make sure that you know the average cost of the car. That's important. The other thing too is, and I always say this, to make sure that you go and get qualified for a loan before you start the process and get that locked in, because I don't think you're going to get the best deal at a dealership in the finance office. Incidentally, those rates that I mentioned earlier were from a prominent credit union who usually has about the best rates in the country. 1-877-913-5357. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Listen, I wanted to mention, you probably heard the spot in the middle of the program about the webinar that's coming up a week from today, and a week from tomorrow, and a week from Friday. It's 3 different times. How to create a simple retirement plan. One of the things I want to talk about, and let me back up and say this: the objective of that webinar is to equip you with how to go through the process and how to keep it simple, so that you can answer at least the question: am I on track? Am I ahead of the game, or am I behind? And I'm going to cover a lot. This is going to be jam-packed into a 40-minute presentation. One of the things I'm going to talk about is how to set realistic retirement goals and assumptions. And I think this is where there are so many problems with retirement planning, is that people assume way too much, or they assume way too little. And so you want to be able to answer the question from the standpoint of, and I've asked this many times over 30 years, how much money do you need in retirement? And I'll get the answer, $4,000 to $5,000 a month. Well, is it $4,000 or is it $5,000? You want to be exact. I'm going to show you how to do that, how to get to that number, and how to determine what the growth rate is that you're going to assume you're going to average. That is an enormous piece of the puzzle. And how to tell if you are assuming the wrong growth rate, which you can pick up on here pretty quick if you follow these tips and these principles. So I'm really looking forward to doing this webinar, because I think it's the first time I've done a webinar like this. and looking forward to really going over some great information. I think we'll have a lot of fun doing so. So it's August 24th at 10 a.m., which is next Wednesday, August 25th at 11 a.m., which is next Thursday, a week from tomorrow, and a week from Friday, August 26th at noon. So sign up and get on track today. IC Cars is a interesting website. It's a lot like AutoTrader, and you can go look at the prices of new and used cars and what's in stock and get an idea and all that kind of thing. So they put out all of these different studies, and pretty interesting. And I'll come to the conclusion on what I think about this one. They analyzed 1.8 million used car sales in July. So this is actual data that happened in the month of July. And they're looking at price change from July 2021 to July 2022. And I get these just about every month. And what I find shocking is that this is the first time that the list hasn't been your everyday cars, like your Honda or your Toyota, or just your pretty much average vehicle. Your Ford, your Chevrolet, your trucks and cars, and that kind of thing. The top 5, I'm going to read these to you, the top 5 cars with the greatest price increases in July. And this is in Fort Worth, by the way. Number 1 on the list, and I've never even seen this brand break into the top 10 of this list since I've been following it. I've been following it for a long time. The number 1 vehicle is the Porsche 911. Get this, the percent price change from a year ago, up 43.1%. That comes, it's crazy. That comes out to an additional $66,683 to buy a Porsche 911 over the past year. 66,000. Do you know how many cars you could buy with 66,000? And that was the price increase on average on one Porsche 911. Number 2, the Chevrolet Corvette, up 35.6%, or a mere $24,326. Number 3, the Lexus ES, 34.4%, up $11,943. Number 4 is the BMW X4, up 33.7%, or $11,940. And number 5, the Jaguar, I've heard it's pronounced Jaguar. Anyway, we'll call it that. F-Type, 32.9%, or $15,652. Now, if you're not shopping in the high-end marketplace, the Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas average is 2.9% over the past year. 2.9%. I guess you can live with that, right? $928 difference. It is truly amazing. What this says to me is, you know, the middle class, and I don't really know what income numbers you assign to that, but the middle class is getting decimated. It's one of those things where the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer in our country. And this would speak, these numbers I think speak to that. But one tip that Tony Joe always gives is to go and look at and it's just totally leaving my brain. I'll think of it in a minute. I don't want to stall too much on live radio. It's the car report that you look at that shows the car something. I can't remember it. Carfax, the Carfax. It says if there's anything wrong with it, it does a title search, tells you how many owners, tells you the history of the car. Most importantly, it tells you if the car has been in any kind of a wreck. One of the things Tony Joe talks about on Friday on the special Car Corner edition of Prudent Money is that you can save a lot of car that's been in a minor fender bender, because it shows up in the Carfax and the car dealer has to take a little bit of a discount for it. Maybe not these days. Who knows? I haven't shopped around in a while. But if it's just a mere throwaway part that they replace and the paint matches up okay, you may get a little bit of a discount for it. So don't shy away from that. As well as a high mileage car that's in good shape. That can pay off. Hey, this is Bob Brooks. You got a question for me, please go to the website at prudentmoney.com and send it in, because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time, keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.